Hey, Mr. Cartoon Head here. Just wanted to introduce another little tutorial video to help you earn an A in Money Study Group. Welcome to another lecture. This is really not a tutorial. It kind of is a tutorial. Today's lesson is being done in advance. I will be out of town on Tuesday, so I won't be there to facilitate our Zoom meeting. So we're going to talk about bargaining and negotiating this week. So here we go. I've taken a couple of lectures from previous semesters and kind of spliced them together, and I've posted your assignment in Blackboard so you can jump right in and get her done. I'll be back next week, and I look forward to seeing you in the Zoom meeting. By the way, if you attended the extra credit event this last week, then you know what I'm talking about. Just go ahead and create a little summary of what you heard and send that to me with your next assignment. You can put it in the little message center in Blackboard. When you do that, I will give you the 50 points extra credit as promised, and I will just add that to whichever assignment you submit with that note. Give me a good summary, just a good summary of what you learned at the event. So I'll look forward to reading those in the little message text box. So here we go with bargaining and negotiating. See you next. I'm going to start out by talking about bargaining and negotiating. To do that, I want to invite you to consider being a part of a group on this side of the room. If we were together, whenever I taught this lesson in the beginning, when we were all together in a classroom, I would always separate the class. I didn't make you get up and move, but mentally, I wanted you to choose which side of the room you were on. On this side of the room were folks like my wife, Connie, who, when you think about negotiating and bargaining, feel like it's awkward, uncomfortable. It's not something you love doing. So think about it for a second. That side of the room, I'm calling it my left side of the room, are folks who really don't see bargaining and negotiating as something that you really want to engage in. On the other hand, on the right side of the room, what I'm considering the right side of the room, my side of the room, we feel like bargaining and negotiating is kind of like a sport. We enjoy it. We engage in it. We look forward to it. We can't imagine doing life without bargaining and negotiating. And for the most part, we think on this side of the room that everything is negotiable. And again, on the other side of the room, my wife, her side of the room, and so many people that I know, maybe you're one of them, you don't think everything's negotiable. And why would you even go through the headache and the heartache and the frustration and the awkwardness and the uncomfortableness of trying to bargain and negotiate anything? So take a minute, think about which side of the room are you on. So go ahead and put a chat in. Are you on the right side of the room? Thank you, Rehan. I'm with you because I don't want to pay higher prices. I'm with you. I don't want to pay high. I want to pay as little as I can. Okay. And I want to spend as little as I can to get the best deal possible. So I only see one comment. Who else? Come on, you guys, chime in. Tell me which side of the room you're on. If you're watching on Facebook or the YouTube, do the same thing. Just make the declaration. Bargaining side. Thank you, Mandy. Good to hear that, because that's the side of the room I'm on. I would want you to be on my side of the room. I want you all to be on my side of the room, but I know you're not. So is there anyone out there that just says, I don't love bargaining and negotiating. It's a little awkward. My wife thinks it's like not for her. And so that's what we're going to talk about today. And I don't want to put pressure on you, make you feel uncomfortable to go ahead and declare something that you're not comfortable declaring to the whole wide world, although it is only in our Zoom meeting. It is a thrill, to be honest, like a high. Jason, yeah, that's how it works. I'm on the right side, even though I bargain when making big purchases only, like a car or a house. Okay, yeah, and that's cool. Right side, I think it's awkward because explaining is complicated. Liz, I'm not sure I understand what you mean. You're on the right side of the room, so you are on the side of bargaining and negotiating, but I think it's awkward because explaining is complicated. But I'm just going to take for granted, Liz, that you're on my side of the room, our side of the room, the bargaining side of it. And that's cool. But if you're not, this lesson is for you. For those of you who say, you know what, I don't like to bargain and negotiate. Because what I want to do today is help you put into context why bargaining and negotiating is an important part of personal finance. It's an important part of your financial life. So think about it for a minute with me, like a math question, a numbers question. So there's no right answer here, but pretend there is a right answer and help me come up with the right answer. The question is, let's assume that we're all making $100,000 a year and we all are buying the same basket of goods, okay, the same services, the same products. We're all buying the same thing. We have rent, we have utilities, we have groceries, we have car insurance, we have cars, we have houses, we have you name it. We all have the same thing, Wi-Fi, phone service, iPhones. We all have the same thing. So we're all buying the same thing and we all make $100,000 a year. That's a simple scenario. Let's pretend we're all in the same situation. The only difference is that on this side of the room, these folks are not going to negotiate because it's awkward, uncomfortable, and they don't feel like it's something that is necessary or something they want to do. On the other hand, on this side of the room, this group, my group, our group, the bargaining and negotiating freak shows of America, or of the world, really, because bargaining and negotiating is not an American thing. It's a human thing, because everyone really wants a good bargain. The question is, what are you willing to do for the good bargain? Are you designed to bargain and negotiate? And if you're on this side of the room and you bargain and negotiate everything versus this side of the room, give me a percentage of that $100,000 a year. How much of an advantage and a percentage would we have on the right side of the room for those of us who bargain and negotiate everything versus those who are on the left side of the room who don't bargain and negotiate? So what do you think? What's the percentage of benefit of $100,000? So that makes the percentages really easy. If you're on the side of the room where you bargain and negotiate everything versus those on the left side of the room who don't bargain and don't negotiate anything, what's the percentage of benefit that we're going to have on the right side of the room? So do you think we save 2% a year, 1% a year? Think we save 5%? What do you think the percentage is that we're able to benefit in terms of savings if we negotiate and bargain everything? So come on, give me an answer. If you're on YouTube or Facebook, go ahead and put it in just for fun. And I'm going to wait. It is hard, Jason, to quantify because the seller may not be willing to budge in many instances. That's exactly right. So we're coming up with an answer, a percentage that there's really no right answer. Who cares? It's just a question to make us think, because I want us to kind of acknowledge that there is a difference in a year. If we all purchased the same things, we all needed the same services, the same products, and we all made $100,000 a year, that there is some number that makes it worth considering whether or not we want to learn a few skills related to bargaining and negotiating so that it helps us financially over our lifetime. That's really what I'm trying to do in this lesson, is to get you to think. And that's how I wanted to try to do that, is to come up with this scenario and make you pick a number. So, Jason, 50% at the very least compared to buying at MSRP. MSRP is manufacturer suggested retail price. I think that's one of the questions in your quiz this week, or last week maybe. So 50%, that's a big number. So of $100,000, I'm saving $50,000, 50%. That's a lot in 1 year. Anyone else? Jason, thank you for that contribution. I'm not looking at Facebook or YouTube right now because that's just overwhelming to try to be in so many places. So I'll look at those comments later if you're on Facebook or YouTube. What do you think the percentage might be for those of us on the right side of the room who negotiate everything versus the people on the left side of the room who don't negotiate anything? Is there a percentage? So I have one answer. That's kind of sad. Okay, I'm going to let Chloe in because Chloe keeps coming back. Chloe, you're late, but welcome aboard. So, Chloe, you're going to want to go back and watch the recorded version because you missed 15 minutes. So let's see. I'm looking for the percentage, and I'm not getting it. You guys are. I hope you're not watching Netflix or Facebook, whatever. Hello, give me a number. I'm looking for a number. I just have 50%. Come on, Mandy. What do you think? You said you're on the side of the negotiators. How much? What do you think that percentage might be? Maybe 20%. Thank you. I think that's probably closer than 50. And I don't know. There's no right answer. The point is, for those of us who bargain and negotiate, it does make a difference. I'm going to tell you a couple of stories. Liz says probably 30%. That may be right, may be wrong. It depends, I guess. Part of it depends on, well, in this lesson this week, this assignment rather, that's coming up, I'm going to give you 7 of my favorite tips. They're just 7 of the things that I think are pretty consistently helpful in terms of learning how to bargain and negotiate. And I want you, every one of you, to think about bargaining and negotiating. And I want you to think about how you do it, when you do it, why you do it, and what the outcomes might be for you. And I'm going to ask you to share some of that experience with me and some of your intention about bargaining and negotiating in the future. So when I first taught this class, the first time I taught this lesson on bargaining and negotiating, I remember I had purchased some furniture. My wife and I had been looking for furniture. I wanted to replace our furniture. It was terrible. We bought it at an estate planning sale. It was a liquidator kind of store. It was terrible. It looked good, but it was seriously uncomfortable, and it was just junk. And I bought it. It was cheap, but I wanted to get rid of it and replace it with leather. I like leather, so I wanted 2 leather couches because our living room is big, and I wanted them to face one another, and then a love seat, the same leather. And I wanted electric recliners on all of the furniture, the couches and the love seat. So we found this furniture set that was perfect. It was at Ashley Furniture. It was a Sunday night. So my wife and I got on my Goldwing motorcycle. She rarely gets on my motorcycle with me, but it was a nice, cool evening, Sunday evening. And we went to Ashley Furniture and we bought this furniture. It was perfect. It was perfect. We still have it. So we bought the furniture. And while I'm sitting on the couch in the showroom, I asked the salesperson at Ashley Furniture, I said, hey, tell me something. All of a sudden, I realized I didn't even try to bargain or negotiate on this furniture. And I knew I was teaching this lesson on Tuesday. It was Sunday. On Tuesday, I'd be teaching this lesson. And I felt like I lacked integrity because I knew good and well I was going to talk about how I bargain and negotiate everything because I think it's kind of fun and it works and I do it all the time. But here I was spending about $5,000 on some furniture because I could afford it and I didn't really care. And I wasn't going to bargain and negotiate. I was just going to do it, get it done, check it off my list. Okay, that's what I was going to do. So while I was sitting on this couch in the showroom, I asked the salesperson, I said, hey, tell me something. If I went and shopped for this, would I find it cheaper somewhere else? You know what his answer was? Does anybody know what his answer was? He was a professional salesperson selling furniture at Ashley Furniture Retail Store. Jason, yes. What do you think, Jason? You think you know what he said? What do you think he said? Yes? Oh, you think he said, yes, I would find it cheaper somewhere else? No, he didn't say that. He was a little smarter than that, I think. Because what he did is he started to tell me about how great their service was and how they delivered the next day and how I would be able to get it and they would take good care of me. So he was giving me all the reasons that I should pay more for this furniture. That wasn't really the question I was wanting answered. I wanted to know what's the best price because, frankly, how well I get service from a store that sells me furniture. I mean, once I take the furniture home, I don't really expect any kind of service. And anyway, that's what he said. I went to Rooms to Go this Sunday, Liz says, for a new bed, and I don't even think about negotiating. Well, if you go to Rooms to Go, you definitely can negotiate there. I've bought a lot of furniture there. It's a great place, and they will make a deal if you decide it's worth trying. So at Ashley Furniture, the salesman starts telling me all these reasons that I'm paying more, basically. Not that I wouldn't save money if I shopped around. So I was sitting on this couch, my new couch in the showroom, and I pulled up my iPhone 7. I had a nice iPhone 7 Plus at the time. Now I have a 13. It's way better. But then that was the best phone. For me, it was the best phone I ever owned. And I'm sitting on this couch, and I pull up my iPhone, and I start to Google because the manufacturer, the product had a name. I don't remember what the name was, but it had a name and a model number, if you will, or whatever the number was. And I just Googled that. And guess what I found? So Jason's asking Liz, that's a great question, Jason. I hope you'll answer that, Liz. I'm not going to read it out, but basically he's like, why wouldn't you negotiate? So anyway, back to my story. I'm in this store, Ashley Furniture, sitting on the couch I'm about to buy, and I'm paying retail, and I Google it, and I find out that this same exact furniture is available through another company, Coleman Online or something like that. It was an online furniture store. The exact same furniture made by the exact same factory was available for half the price, and there was no tax, and there was free delivery, and the warranty that you pay, like if you scratch the furniture or poke it and they repair it. At Ashley's, I paid $250 per unit. So it was a total of, there were 3 pieces. That was a total of $750. But if you bought it through this online distributor, you paid one price. And if you bought 10 pieces of furniture, they gave you that same warranty on all 10 pieces. So I saved money on the little warranty thing, which I normally wouldn't buy, but that was too good a deal to pass up. I got no tax. The purchase price was about half, and the delivery was free. It was called white glove delivery. The only drawback was it wasn't going to be delivered tomorrow. I was going to have to wait about a week to get my new furniture. So my question to you is, what would you do? Would you pay the $5,000 to Ashley plus the tax, plus the warranty, plus the delivery fee? I will back out at Ashley, Jens says. So, Mandy, I like that. I'm not going to read it. You guys can all read the comments. If you're in Zoom, that's one of the benefits of coming to the Zoom is you get to read these comments. So we got a nice little chat going on in there. That's great. So yeah, I would wait a week, Mandy says. Jens says, I would back out at Ashley. Jason says, yep, that's what I would do. I would have done my due diligence first, Jim. Yep, that's what you should do. And that's one of the top 7 tips I'm giving you this week based on just nothing but my own observations, is that research is very helpful and it'll save you the embarrassment of having to do what I had to do. I ran out to my motorcycle and I have little pieces of cash stashed around in my motorcycle. I got all the cash I could find, which wasn't much. It was like $40. And I gave it to the salesman. I said, here's a little tip. I know you're missing a big piece of commission. I'm sorry about that, but there's no way I'm spending $5,000. And I showed him the order. I said, I just bought this online and saved 50%. Dude, I'm sorry you work at Ashley Furniture. That stinks. Because your company is selling a product that's available for half the price with a whole bunch of other benefits at another place. And it's exactly the same product. And so then, from then on, when I teach this lesson, I always have to tell that story because it proves the point that research, doing a little research, is part of bargaining and negotiating. And so I hope that's helpful. I'm in the process right now of bargaining and negotiating something else. I was driving my RV through Houston to go camping a couple of weeks ago, and I got in a little bit of a, you could call it an accident. The trucking company that I had the interaction with is calling it an accident, and they're saying it was my fault. And now I'm having to bargain and negotiate with them about whose fault it was and the damages as well. So I'm driving down in Houston, very narrow lanes. I'm in this big RV, and there's a truck next to me, and the lanes are going like this, and they're very narrow. And somehow the truck and my vehicle came close enough together as I was passing so that the mirrors touched, barely touched. In fact, my mirror didn't even have a scratch on it, but it did shift the mirror. So I had to pull off, adjust my mirror. And so the trucker, he pulled off as well, and he came over and he wanted to call the police and file a report. I'm like, dude, the police are not going to come out because our mirror is touched. And yet he said that's what his company policy was, yada, yada, yada. So finally I get a call from his insurance company. And he says, they say that it was my fault and they are going to charge me for his time. He sat there all day waiting for the cops to come. I'm like, dude, don't waste your time. Get back on the road. Here's my number. Here's my information. We'll get this worked out. But the poor guy, he felt like he had to stay there. And they wanted to charge me for his whole day of sitting there waiting for the police to show up for an accident that really had no property damage. The plastic piece of his mirror came off. And then they wanted to charge me to replace his entire mirror. And I'm like, yeah, right, nope. And so I'm still bargaining and negotiating with them. And frankly, it's not much fun. But at this point, I feel like, okay, it's a matter of principle. So anyway, that's another story. Off topic, Jason says, maybe I shouldn't read this, but I can't help it. I just want to take a second and recommend that everyone get a dash cam. The initial purchase stinks. So that's interesting. I just actually 10 minutes before I started class watched the dash cam footage from this truck, and that's the evidence they're using to say it was my fault. And it's not completely conclusive, but it does make me question whether or not maybe I went into the other lane. So it doesn't make me feel like the amount that they want to charge for the piece of plastic was justified, but it definitely is evidence. A dash cam is definitely evidence. And so, yeah, that's what I'm working on right now. Okay, so back to bargaining and negotiating. Let me just kind of wrap things up here because we need to move on. I have some homework for you. I want you to think about bargaining and negotiating, and I want you to spend, I want you to watch some YouTube videos. One of them I actually posted in your assignment. It's this guy, Ramit Sethi. I met Ramit at a conference a while back, and he does this interview. It used to be an entire interview. It was between him and his friend Justin about how to negotiate your salary. Apparently the original video is no longer available, and he kind of shrunk it down, summarized it. So good for you. You get to watch a shorter video. But anyway, I posted in your assignment kind of the timeline inside the video. I just think it's helpful. Ramit wrote this book called I Will Teach You to Be Rich. And the conference that I went to that Ramit was at, he was a speaker and just a great young guy. He was a very impressive young man. And at the time, I had just written a book called Make Your Money Count. And I wanted the website, makeyourmoneycount.com, but it was already taken. So based on Ramit, he teaches, I will teach you to be rich. And that was his website, I will teach you to be rich.com. So I went ahead and bought imakeyourmoneycount.com thanks to Ramit. That was an idea I got from him at this conference. But anyway, I think you'll find that video is helpful. And it kind of frames out and punctuates the basic idea of this lesson, that if you decide to bargain and negotiate, there's a whole lot of things that you can actually bargain and negotiate. Some people would say you can't negotiate for furniture. You can. Some would say you can't bargain or negotiate for a car. You can. And so I could go on and on. And one of the things I usually do when we have more time is just go to the board and make a list of all the things that you think are not negotiable. And it's very interesting because the folks on the left side of the room will make a long list of things that are not negotiable, like furniture and cars and groceries and insurance, and the list goes on and on. And then we go to the right side of the room and we actually hear stories about how people have negotiated each of those. And so there's one thing that turns out to be difficult to negotiate, and that's tuition at the University of Houston. But even that, some students would say, hey, you can get a scholarship, you can get a grant, you can get a job on campus. There's lots of ways that may not be considered negotiating, but it is bargaining. And so bargaining and negotiating are kind of twins, brothers and sisters, if you will. So I just want to encourage you, as you think about your financial future, I want you to think about what kind of benefits you might have. Some said 50%, if that magical, there's not a right answer. So 10%, 20%, if it's true, if I could save 10% because I decide to bargain and negotiate a few things like furniture and like, using coupons when I buy groceries, like getting things when they're on sale versus, waiting, getting them on sale. Like I do this with meat all the time. I love to smoke meat on my Traeger grill, which I actually bought at Costco because they were having a sale. I waited until I found a sale. I bargained and negotiated, and I got a nice Traeger pellet smoker, and I like to smoke ribs and lots of things. But I never buy meat unless it's on sale, and things like meat goes on sale all the time. Not all the time, but I know the price is going up everywhere, but still it goes on sale. And when you buy it on sale and put it in your freezer, you save a lot of money. And I bought the freezer used on Craigslist for $100. So I'm just saying that you can save money and use that money for something that really matters if you decide to do that, or you could just spend it all in retail and not save. So if I could save 10%, some said 20, 30, even 50. But if I could save 10% on a $100,000 income, that's 10 grand in 1 year. In 10 years, that's 100 grand, $100,000. And if I look out over the span of your investing life, like from now until when you want to think about retirement, I just turned 60 last month, actually in April. So most of you are not 30 years old. So let's say 4 decades before, almost 4 decades before you're my age. If you did save 10% on just $100,000 income, and most of you will make much more than that over the course of your careers. If you did, that would be 4 decades of $10,000 savings. Is almost, that's 400,000. So I don't know what the number is. I just know there is a number, and I want to encourage you to develop some skills in bargaining and negotiating. And that's what this assignment is all about. It's called bargaining and negotiating.
So let's say now that I have just, in this scenario, you have no other competing offers, and I've just made you an offer for $50,000. So Justin, here's the offer, and our salary is $50,000.
Well, first I just want to say I'm very excited about the role. I think first and foremost, I want to be here. This is the job that I want. Now, with that said, I think that the experience that I bring to the table, the value that I've been able to demonstrate in my prior roles warrants a much higher salary than $50,000. in terms of my own research regarding this particular role at this company and other companies, what I've actually seen is that there's a range of more like 45,000 to 65,000, and I think that given my experience, given the success that I've been able to have in prior roles, which I believe I'm going to bring to this role as well, that I deserve to be at the higher end of that range. So my aspiration is to actually be at 65,000.
Well, I appreciate that, and as you know, we'd love to have you. Unfortunately, the economy is just really tough, and there's not much I can really do about that. So, that's pretty much the situation right now with this economy.
Yeah. Okay. And I totally get that. I think that at the end of the day, I would look at this like an investment. Are you going to invest $50,000 with someone who's going to be able to double your money, or if you were to pay $65,000, you're going to be working with someone who's going to be able to triple, quadruple, or many times improve that return. And the work that I've done in the past, I think it's the same thing. Like oftentimes, we've been told, your price point's too expensive. But at the end of the day, it's the return on that price point. And I think that compared to other candidates, I'm going to be able to more than make up that $15,000 difference.
Okay. I mean, you do make a case. So I just was able to actually check with my manager, and we're able to be slightly flexible on that rate. We had quoted you 50, and I know you brought up a range, and so I'm able to offer you 57.
Mm-hmm.
Would that be acceptable?
One other thing which we didn't talk about is some of the other modes of compensation. So, stock options, bonus. Would it be appropriate to talk about some of those? Because while 57 is better than the 50 that you offered, it's still not, given my research, what I think that I deserve in this role. And so if there's more flexibility, understanding that you guys may be constrained from a budgetary perspective right now, if there's more flexibility around stock or options or bonus at the end of the year,
sure, we
I'd
can
be
talk
happy
about
to
that.
discuss that.
Let's discuss that. So on stock options, we are flexible. We've offered you 20,000 options, and we're able to actually extend that number with the understanding that you are a top candidate. So we are pleased to be able to offer you 40,000 options,
Mm-hmm.
and that actually doubles the number originally. Now, as you know, we can't promise where the stock is going to go, but we think that that's a very compelling offer.
Sure. I think that goes a long way to closing the gap, and I really appreciate your flexibility there, because I am committed to this role, and I think options are a great way for you guys to demonstrate that you're committed to me, and for me to demonstrate that I'm committed to you. The one other thing that I would love to talk about is, what would the review cycle be for my performance in terms of evaluating my candidacy for a promotion or a raise? Because while I understand right now we're going through some tough times, what I would love to do is, my understanding is it tends to be a year, but could we have an accelerated review cycle after 6 months to potentially repeg my salary to a level that is more commensurate with, I think, the experience that I'm bringing to the table here?
We normally don't do that, but in this case, you've been flexible, and I think we've come to a fair agreement for both of us. So yeah, I can speak to the hiring manager, and we can certainly do a 6-month review cycle. And with that said, that's pretty much the best I can do. Would that work for you?
Yep, I think so.
Okay, that was awesome. So let's analyze what happened first of all. So tell me what you did from your perspective, and I'll tell you the notes that I took as well.
Sure. So, I think one, again, coming in, having research, I made up some numbers, but that's the right tactic to take. Talk to your friends, go online. There's a lot of resources online that'll, tell you the ranges of salaries for particular positions. You need to know that information. Otherwise, it might be that you're perfectly happy with 50, but you turn around, you start that company, and you realize everyone around you is getting paid 100.
Yeah.
Because the range is much more significant than you had initially thought. So it's knowing the range, knowing my worth. You should be, thoughtful and introspective about, where you think you stack up. there is a risk. It's probably a smaller risk, but there is a risk where you push so hard that the expectations become so high for you once you hit the ground, once you get in the company, that you don't set yourself up for success. So if you're a top candidate and you know you deserve to be at the top of that range, stick to your guns. Re-highlight the attributes and the experiences, your promotion progression, your current salary, whatever it might be, to emphasize why you deserve to be at the top of the range. But I think it's coming in and knowing what you want. So, for me, you started at 50. In my mind, I said, okay, range is 45 to 65. And I felt like I should have been at the top of the range. So I felt like at that point in time, you had shown some good faith attempt to go and try to reevaluate that, and came up with 57. Then I want to get flexible. We hadn't talked about other attributes and elements of compensation which oftentimes can be more or as important as your base salary. And so, what are the degrees of flexibility that you have there? And now let's introduce those. Now that I feel like I've maxed out what you're willing to pay on a salary basis. And then, the key reason that I was hearing from you in terms of why you weren't able to reach kind of my salary expectation was the economy. And so let's, what are some creative ways? Like, feel free to get a little bit creative. Like, what are some creative ways to ensure that you get what you deserve when things are looking better, when things do turn around? Maybe 6 months from now, things are just as bad or worse and you're not able to get that, but set yourself up for that success possible.
The things I noticed were that, first of all, it was not adversarial. It was, let's work on this together because we both have the same goal.
Yeah.
I noticed that your answers were longer than in the interview, and I think that's appropriate. It's a time where we're covering a little bit more depth, and that's fine. And when you spoke, I listened because I knew, I really need to understand this guy. I've already judged him, and he's great. I want to work with him. Now let me listen. You constantly reiterated that you were excited for the job. As soon as I made you the offer, you said, well, first of all, thank you. And at each step, you said, that goes a long way to closing the gap. And again, I just want to tell you how excited I am to work here. It cannot be overstated how important that excitement is.
Yeah. And that's absolutely intentional, because I think, to your first point, what you want to avoid is an adversarial conversation or a conversation where you've built up all this goodwill over the course of the interviews. This person's excited to have you on board, obviously. What you want to do is come in day one and they're excited to have you. They have high hopes. They're looking for you to be successful. They wouldn't hire you if they didn't think you were going to be successful in the role. And if you take too kind of sharp, if the tactics you use in negotiation come across as being too cutthroat or too adversarial, you can damage some of that credibility. And again, big picture, what am I going for? You may want to maximize your salary, but is it worth eking out that last $1,000? Could I have pressed you and gotten 58 instead of 57? Because maybe 58 was your actual max? Maybe. But what would it have taken to get there? And so you have to kind of read the hiring manager or the recruiting manager that you're talking with to figure out, okay, is this all they can do? Have we reached their limit? Or maybe they can do a little bit better, but it's going to do more harm than good.
Yeah, this is the art and science of negotiation. You mentioned the range, which is just the default, what everyone should come in with, their range and their data. That's a given. But then you took it to another level. You said, based on my success at the last company, which I also expect to bring to this company. So now you're talking about me, because that range is nice, but I want to hear about me and what you're going to do for me. So I thought that was very clever. When I pushed back, you turned into the investment strategy. And I think we both kind of laughed about that. Think of it as an investment, and you gave a couple of examples. That was clever. One thing after I gave you the 57 was you then said, would it be appropriate to discuss this? So you're giving me a little bit of power because you know that you're about to just really hit me hard with something else. Doing one ask is one thing, but you did about 3 asks. So you paused, you let me have control for a second, and then I said, okay, that's appropriate. You caught up on my thing that said the economy, so you said, understanding that you may be constrained for budgetary reasons, which may or may not be true, but you're giving me that power again. Right? So I felt like, oh, he really understands me and he's a flexible guy. Once I raised your rate, you said that goes a long way to closing the gap. So you're appreciating what I've done. I like that. And then, of course, the review cycle. So tell me what your thinking was there.
Yeah. I think if you're being forthcoming in terms of we can't pay you more because of the economic environment, it should be a very easy conversation thing for you to be able to agree to, that let's review your salary in 6 months rather than a year's time, given that we're bringing you in. It's kind of an acknowledgement. Now, if you're pulling a fast one on me and you are being disingenuous in terms of your ability, it kind of puts you in a tough situation, actually. Like, it's a little bit of a it's about as strong arm as I think you want to get from a candidate perspective in a negotiation, because it kind of forces your hand. For you to say, no, we can't do that, now I start to get a little suspicious, actually. It kind of reveals your true intentions.
Okay, and what do you do then?
I would probe a little more on, if you say, no, that wouldn't be appropriate, it's like, well, why wouldn't that be appropriate if what you're telling me right now is that this is a point in time where we're unable to do it? Wouldn't it make sense in 6 months' time to reevaluate that?
Wouldn't it make sense? That's a very gentle way of saying, hey, what are you doing here?
Hey, dummy. Yeah.
I caught you.
It's calling you out. So it's trying to, it's maximizing, it's using all the tools at your disposal to try to maximize, what the company's paying you, right? It's ensuring that the company's paying you up to the value that you're going to be bringing.
A couple other questions for you. One, how would you have changed this if you had other offers? What would you say?
Yeah. I think I would probably still, again, I started the conversation with I'm very excited about this job. With another offer, I think it gets a little tricky. Like I said, the number one thing hiring managers hate is to lose you to a competing firm. So they're probably going to get more aggressive. But what I don't, again, big picture, I don't want them to think like, actually, I really want to work over here, but if you pay me more, I'll come over here. Because all of a sudden, the dynamics of that relationship of why I'm interested, what I've been selling through the interviewing process, starts to be called into question. So it's recognizing the offer you have. Like, you should, at some point in time, if you tell me 50 and the offer's for 60, I'm probably just going to tell you, look, that's significantly under my competing offer. I'll try to not tell you the exact number, because what I don't want to say is, I have an offer for 60 and you tell me, perfect, we'll pay you 60 or 61. But I want to let you know directionally there's another offer on the table. I prefer to be here, but I want to make sure that, I'm going to bring a lot of, my skills, and I'm going to be able to do a lot of great things at whichever company I go for. And I want to make sure that my value is fairly represented by my compensation. And I think you have to keep coming back to anchoring it on that. Because if it comes across as I'm just money hungry, I'm going to try to milk every dime out of this, you're not setting the right stage for a successful career there.
Right.
If you're coming in on that footing.
Right.
Versus, I want to be here, I'm going to add a tremendous amount of value, and here's what I'm worth.
Right. And let's just find a fair number that works for both of us.
Yeah.